Hello students, welcome to the English class again. Today I am going to give you the last part of the explanation of the enemy. I have provided you already 5 parts of the explanation, and today in the 6th part we are going to complete with the chapter. Okay, so yesterday in my last video we have done till okay he said simply, and today we are going to start from Sadao did not see him again. Let's recapitulate what happened till this much. That is, Sadao went to the general and he had disclosed the entire event to the general that that an American was washed into his house, and listening to him, the general had made a plan that Sadao that he would send some assassin to Sadao's house, and those assassins would murder the American, and Sadao will get rid of this American, and the matter will be solved, right? And Sadao thought that that would be a very good idea. Okay, that would be a very good plan, and he waited for 3 consecutive nights for this assassins to arrive, but the assassins never arrived. So Sadao found that it is useless waiting for these assassins, so he has to make his own simple plan, okay, and get rid of this American. So he approached this American boy, and he told him that he would be loading a boat of his, okay, into the sea, and the American can take the boat, go sail to the nearby island, and wait for a Korean fishing ship, and board that fishing ship, and can be away from this place, right? Okay, so let's continue from here. Sadao did not see him again until evening. As soon as it was dark, he had dragged the stout boat down to the shore, and in it he put food and bottled water that he had bought secretly during the day, as well as 2 quilts he had bought at a pawn shop. The boat he tied to a post in the water, for the tide was high. There was no moon, and he worked without a flashlight. So what exactly happened? Sadao left and did not meet the young man until evening. Okay, he told the plan to the young man, and then he left the place. During the day, he made arrangements for him. As it became dark, Sadao pulled out a big boat to the shore. He placed food and bottled water in it that he had bought secretly during the day. He kept 2 quilts in it. He had purchased them from the pawn shop. As there was a high tide in the sea, he tied the boat to a pole. It was a dark, moonless night, and Sadao worked without a torch. He did not want to be spotted by anyone. Now, there are some words, let's see here. First of all, stout. What does here stout boat means? It means a fat, big boat. Okay. Next, we have another word known as pawn shop. What is the meaning of pawn shop? Pawn shop is a store that lends money in exchange for a valuable thing. Okay, that they can sell if the person living it does not pay an agreed amount of money by an agreed time. Okay, and flashlight means torch. Okay. When he came to the house, he entered as though he were just back from his work, and so Hana knew nothing. Yumi was here today, she said as she served his supper. Though she was so modern, still she did not eat without him. Yumi cried over the baby. She went on with a sigh. She misses him so. The servants will come back as soon as the foreigner is gone, Sadao said. He went into the guest room that night before he went to bed himself and checked carefully the American's temperature, the state of the wound, and his heart and pulse. The pulse was irregular, but that was perhaps because of excitement. The young man's pale lips were pressed together, and his eyes burned. Only the scars on his neck were red. Okay. So when Sadao came home, he pretended as though he had returned from work so that Hana did not guess anything. Hana served him the evening meal and said that Yumi had visited them that day as she missed the baby a lot. Although although Hana was very modern, she did not eat without Sadao. Okay. Now, Sadao then confirmed or reassured Hana that as soon as the American men would leave, the servants would all return. Right? That night, before going to bed, Sadao visited the man. He checked his body temperature, the wound, his heart, and heartbeat. The heartbeat was unsteady, but that must be due to excitement because the man was quite excited that he is escaping from here. So there was a kind of tension and nervousness working inside the man. Okay, the man's lips were pressed together and his eyes were red in color, which seemed to be burning with fire. The scars on his neck were still red as they had not healed yet. Right? I realize you are saving my life again, he told Sadao. Not at all, Sadao said. It is only inconvenient to have you here any longer. So the young man said to Sadao or asked Sadao that he was saving his life once again. That means he is hoping that Sadao is saving his life once again. Because how would the American believe Sadao? Sadao, yes, Sadao being a doctor had cured and healed the American. That is one thing. Okay, but that time the American was unconscious. But now that Sadao is giving a boat and allowing the American to go, the American, after all, as I have told you, during the wartime, a person cannot even believe his own countrymen. Now, here is two enemies, okay, an American and a Japanese, if we consider it in a country-wise context. Okay, so the American is, though he is following the, what we can say, the plan of Sadao, but somewhere he has a doubt that Sadao is after all a Japanese. So he is reassuring that whether Sadao is actually saving his life or with the help of this boat and everything, he is giving away this American to the Japanese army. He is unsure about that. Okay, so Sadao said that it was not like that. He was sending him because he could not keep him any longer. He had hesitated a good deal about giving the man a flashlight, but he had decided to give it to him after all. It was a small one, his own, which he used at night when he was called. If your food runs out before you catch a boat, he said, signal me 2 flashes. At the same time, at the same instant, the sun drops over the horizon. Do not signal in darkness, for it will be seen. If you are all right, but still there, signal me once. You will find fresh fish easy to catch, but you must eat them raw. A fire would be seen. Okay, the young man breathed. Okay. Now, Sadao was reluctant in giving him his torch, okay, because he felt that if the man used it unwisely, he could be spotted and land into trouble. But finally, he gave him his own torch, the one that Sadao used when he had to attend patients at night, okay. Now what happened? Sadao instructed the man. He said that if his stock of food finished before he found a Korean fishing boat, he could signal him with 2 flashes of the torch at dusk time. He asked him to be careful not to signal when it was dark because light was more visible in the dark as compared to dusk. He even added that the man could find fish in the sea near the island, but he had to eat it raw. Why? Because he was not supposed to cook it, because fire would be spotted by the guards and put him in danger. So the man understood everything. He drew a breath on hearing the instructions and said, okay, right? He was dressed now in the Japanese clothes which Sadao had given him. And at the last moment, Sadao wrapped a black cloth around his blonde head. No, Sadao said. The young American, without a word, shook Sadao's hands warmly and then walked quite well across the floor and down the step into the darkness of the garden. Once, twice, Sadao saw his light flash to find his way, but that would not be suspected. He waited until from the shore there was one more flash. Then he closed the partition. That night he slept. You say okay. So then what happened? The American man shook this one. Okay, sorry. The man wore the traditional Japanese dress. Okay, that Sadao gave him to wear. Finally, Sadao wrapped a black cloth around his head to hide his golden colored hair. Okay, such that if any guard, if they use any binocular also, seeing the black cloth, they will, of course, they will not understand that whether this is an American or a Japanese, right? So the American man shook hands with Sadao as he walked away towards the boat. He used the torch twice to find his way, but the guards would not doubt that. Sadao waited till he saw the torchlight once more as the man boarded the boat. Sadao closed the door of the partition and slept well that night as he had finally got rid of the man. Okay. Now, Now till this much we have found that this is a part, okay, like Sadao had got rid of this American. Now from here we will see another day, okay, the day when Sadao went to the general and met him and have again told him everything, okay. So this part is a completely new part, and this is the concluding part also, okay. Now this part is also very much important, because in this part we will come to know, we have already know about the general ones, but here we will come to know about the general's character more, that what kind of person this general was, right? So let's continue. You say the man escaped, the general asked faintly. He had been operated upon a week before, an emergency operation to which Sadao had been called in the night. For 12 hours, Sadao had not been sure the general would leave. Now, what exactly happened was that this Sadao means a week ago the general had been operated upon in an emergency, okay, in which Sadao took part. Sadao informed him that the man escaped. Now just see the time gap, okay. Here there is an intersection of space, okay, an intersection of space is given over here, but the author had not mentioned that how many days have passed that that American man had left, okay. But we are coming to know about this because here it is said upon a week. Okay, that means after the American left, maybe few days later, okay, we don't know whether it was a day later or a few more days later, but few days later it is understood or it is assumed that the general messenger again called for Sadao. Sadao went there because Sadao had to attend the general, okay, and it is said after that he had operated upon the general, and after that also we can find here that one more week had passed by. That means the American boy left, okay, then few days later the general was called. Sadao treated the general, and then a week had already passed that the general was operated. So by that time, of course, we can understand that that American man must have already gone away to his own country, okay. He is nowhere there to be seen, okay. He is not in the island anymore, okay. He went away to his own country, right, okay. So here it is said that a week ago the general had been operated upon in an emergency in which Sadao took part, okay. Sadao informed him that the man escaped, and when he came to meet the general, Sadao informed him that the general was weak as he was recovering from the operation. Alright, for 12 hours after the operation his condition was critical, and Sadao was not sure that he would survive. That was there, okay. So here it is said that after 1 week's operation also, then 12 hours, okay, Sadao had to observe the general, right? Okay, the gallbladder was much involved. Now here we find another one. What that is gallbladder? What is gallbladder? Gallbladder is a small sac-shaped organ beneath the liver in which bile is stored. Okay, after secretion by the liver and before release into the intestine. Okay. So of course, they had operated upon this. Sadao had operated upon the general's gallbladder, right? Then the old man had begun to breathe deeply again and to demand food. Sadao had not been able to ask about the assassins. So far as he knew, they were never to come. The servants had returned, and Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly and had burned sulfur in it to get the white man smell out of it. Nobody said anything. Only the gardener was cross because he had got behind with his chrysanthemums. Right? Okay. Now, this the old man, that is the general, he began to breathe deeply. Okay, that is the general was an old man. Okay, after the operation, gradually he started eating food and breathed deeply. Sadao did not have the courage to ask him what happened to the professional killers, okay, that he had promised to send to kill the American man, because after all he is a general. Sadao knew that the killers did not turn up ever. At Sadao's home, things returned to normal. The servants returned. Yumi used sulfur to disinfect the room used by the American man. The servants did not speak anything. The gardener was annoyed because he had got late to plant the chrysanthemum flowers due to this incident. Okay, now here we have already known that Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly and burned sulfur. What is sulfur here? It is a chemical element used as a disinfectant. Okay, and and I have already explained you once in my PPT explanation of theme, where it was said that Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly such that the white man's smell also should not be there. Here I have already told you the communal feeling of Yumi. Okay, the feeling that they hate the American, or they hate this enemy like anything. Okay, and when the servants they returned back, nobody said anything. Okay, not a single word was told by anyone in the household. The servants, they did not utter anything about the this enemy, but only thing that the this gardener was very much angry because he was late in planting his chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemum is a kind of flower, right? Okay. But after a week, Sadao felt the general was well enough to be spoken to about the prisoner. Yes, Excellency, he said. So a week passed, and the Sadao thought that yes, he could speak to the general regarding the prisoner. Yes, Excellency, he escaped, Sadao now said. He coughed, signifying that he had not said all that he might have said, but was unwilling to disturb the general further. But the old man opened his eyes suddenly. That prisoner, he said with some energy. Did I not promise you I would kill him for you? So after 1 week, Sadao felt that the general was well enough that he could discuss the man with him. Sadao said that the man had escaped. Sadao coughed up with which indicated that Sadao had not told him everything, as he did not want to disturb him. The general was reminded of his purpose to send the professional killers, and he opened his eyes suddenly when he heard about the American man. Right? Okay. The general was reminded of his promise and asked Sadao that had he not promised him to get that man killed by his personal professional killers, right? You did, Excellency, Sadao said. Well, well, the old man said in a tone of amazement. So I did. But you see, I was suffering a good deal. The truth is, I thought of nothing but myself. In short, I forgot my promise to you. I wondered, Your Excellency, Sadao murmured. It was certainly very careless of me. The general said, but you understand it was not lack of patriotism or dereliction of duty. He looked anxiously at his doctor. If the matter should come out, you would understand that, wouldn't you? Okay. Sadao replied that he had promised, that yes, he had promised, that the general had promised him. The general was surprised, okay, and said that as he was suffering due to bad health, he had forgotten all about the promise that he had made, right? Sadao spoke softly that he wondered that the general had forgotten his promise. Means he understood that the general had forgotten his promise. The general felt sorry that he had been careless. He added that it was neither that he did not love Japan, okay, nor that he was shirking from his duty. He looked at Sadao with curiosity as he sought support from him. He wondered that Sadao understood his problem. Okay. Now you see here it is given. It was not lack of patriotism or dereliction of duty. First of all, patriotism means what? Patriotism means love for one's country. And dereliction, what is the meaning of dereliction? Dereliction is failure to perform one's duty. What is dereliction? Failure to perform one's duty. Now you see, these lines are very important. What did this man do? The man looked anxiously. Okay, the man looked anxiously at the doctor. Now, why did this general looked anxiously at the doctor? Because he wanted to make it assure from the doctor that he did not did the thing in purpose. Because of course, what would have been a true patriot? Because if the general is a army man, he is looking after the country. Okay, so what would have been his real duty? When he came to know about this American, he should have immediately called for the army, see that Sadao also should not be involved, and he would have arrested the American and send him to the jail. A real general or a perfect patriot general should have been doing this, but no, the general did not do this. He thought of saving Sadao, he thought of bringing this assassin, so many things he had been thinking, okay, but at last he did not even keep his promise also. Why? Because he was busy with his own thing, like with his own health. Okay, he was busy with his own health, right? He thought of I thought, as you can see here, Okay, here it is given, but you see, I was suffering from a good deal. The truth is, I thought of nothing but myself. Here the general is already telling that he was thinking only about himself. Okay, that means about his pain, about his life, and all this thing. He was not at all concerned that an enemy is there inside the country, that enemy could be captured, so many informations could be gathered from the enemy, so many things could have happened. But the general was very careless in his duty. Yet the general is asking Sadao that he looked very anxiously at the doctor because he wants the support from Sadao to confirm the fact that he is a patriot, he is a good general. Understood the point over here, right? Okay. Certainly, Your Excellency, Sadao said. He suddenly comprehended that the general was in the palm of his hand and that as a consequence he himself was perfectly safe. I can swear to your loyalty, Excellency, he said to the old general, and to your zeal against the enemy. You are a good man, the general murmured and closed his eyes. You will be rewarded. Right? So Sadao said that he understood the general's position well. He understood that the general was in his control, and as a result, Sadao was safe. Right? So Sadao said that he could swear upon the general's loyalty towards Japan and his enthusiasm to fight the enemy, right? So now when it is said here that suddenly Sadao had understood that general was in the palm of his hand, what does it mean? That the general that Sadao had control of the general, okay, right? So he understood that he is very safe now. Sadao is very safe now because Sadao, maybe there is one mistake on Sadao that he had sheltered an American. So there is this mistake on Sadao and he might be arrested one day. But there is another mistake done by general, that is he did not arrest the American immediately. So the general is also in a danger position. So Sadao understood that both of them are in the equal position. And now because Sadao knows a very deep truth about the general, that he did not act promptly, so of course the general is completely under Sadao's control, and therefore Sadao himself is safe. He does not want to utilize it into his own benefit, but Sadao knows it very nicely that he himself is also very safe from the from this Japanese army. Okay, so the general was relaxed and said that Sadao was a good man. He closed his eyes and said that Sadao would be rewarded for his goodness. But Sadao, searching the spot of black in the twilighted sea that night, had his reward. There was no prick of light in the dusk. No one was on the island. His prisoner was gone, safe, doubtless, for he had warned him to wait only for a Korean fishing boat. Okay, so Sadao got his reward when at dusk he looked towards the island and saw no trace of torchlight. This meant that the American man had found a Korean fishing boat and had gone with it safely back home. Sadao did not doubt this, as he had instructed the man to wait for a Korean fishing boat. Now this line is very important. We find that in the board exam, one question usually had come that what reward did Sadao get? Okay, what reward did Sadao get? Okay, Sadao of course got the reward, that is the prisoner was gone. The answer is the prisoner was gone, safe, doubtless, for he had warned him not to wait only for a Korean fishing boat. Okay, so that was the reward, that is he had operated upon this American man. Okay, the man survived from his critical condition, and then later on he got rid of the American also without any danger befalling upon him, like a traitor, a name given like traitor or anything. But then the American had returned back to his own country, okay, safely. So he not only saved the American but through the operation, but also had helped the American to escape. Okay, that was the reward. He stood for a moment on the veranda, gazing out to the sea from whence the young man had come that other night. And into his mind, although without reason, there came other white faces he had known. The professor at whose house he had met Hannah, a dull man, and his wife had been a silly talkative woman, in spite of her wish to be kind. This paragraph is important, okay? Because herein we find that Sadao had been in America for so long, yet he hates the American. What is the reason? The reasons are given over here. Okay, it's not only patriotism or only this thing, but there was a kind of, I have told you once in the explanation of theme, the conflict between East and West. Two things are working over here. What are the two things that are working over here? Okay, in the two things, number one is conflict between East and West. Okay, that is the East and West, they are conflicting against each other. East is thinking I am superior, West is thinking that they are superior. And number two that is working is, of course, racism. Okay, here Sadao is also having a feeling of racism, that he feels that Japanese is better than the Americans. They are better than the Americans. Okay, so let's read out the paragraph, then you will understand it clearly. When Sadao was standing on that particular balcony that particular day, Sadao was thinking about the various white faces, means various, he was recollecting the past events. Okay, he looked at the sea from where the man had come that night. He had flashback of all the Americans he had met in his life. Okay, so who are the Americans? Let's see it one by one. Okay, number one is of course the professor at whose house he had met Hana and his wife, okay, who had been a silly talkative woman in spite of her wish to be kind. Okay, so the professor and the wife, these were the two people, right? He understood that he had met Hana in this professor's house, and he remember the small room, the bad smelled and the not very tasty food that was served to them, right? Okay, next, this is number one. Okay, number two is who? Number two is the old teacher of anatomy who had been so insistent on mercy with the knife. Okay, so then Sadao remembered his teacher of anatomy who had taught them to cut open the body with a knife, right? And number three, which is the most important, is of course the fat and slatternly landlady. And then he remembered the face of his fat and slatternly landlady. He had great difficulty in finding a place to live in America. Now this landlady is the one for whom which has instilled a deep hate inside Sadao's heart for the American. Now let's see this incident. This incident is very much similar to Sadao and the Americans incident. See here what it is given here. Okay, so he remembered the face of his fat slatternly lady. Okay, he had great difficulty in finding a place to live in America because he was a Japanese. The Americans were full of prejudice, and it had been bitter to live in it, knowing himself their superior. How he had despised the ignorant and dirty old woman who had at last consented to house him in her miserable home. He had once tried to be grateful to her because she had in his last years nursed him through influenza, but it was difficult, for she was no less repulsive to him in her kindness. Now he remembered the youthful, haggard face of his prisoner, white and repulsive. Strange, he thought. I wonder why I could not kill him. Let's see this thing again. What exactly happened was that Sadao suddenly remembered about his landlady. Okay. Now Sadao, when he went to America, he had hated living there. Okay, because being a Japanese, he had found an accommodation in America with great difficulty. No one was willing to give him accommodation. No one was willing to house Sadao because he was a Japanese, because he was in East. Okay, so he hated living, but he at last got this room in a Japanese landlady's house. Okay, and Sadao hated living there, knowing that the Japanese were superior to the Americans and still being treated like inferiors, right? Sadao disliked the dirty old woman who finally agreed to let him live in her home, which was in a bad condition. Okay, Sadao tried to be thankful to her because once what happened, Sadao was struck with influenza, okay, during the last year of his stay in America, and this landlady served him. Okay, and Sadao wanted to thank the landlady because she had taken care of him. Okay, but the landlady did not even take his thank. Okay, it was difficult for Sadao to be thankful to her as she hated her even though she was kind to him. Okay, Sadao hated her so much that her kindness also did not make him like her. Okay, now if you see here, it is given here. Okay, it is given here that Americans were full of prejudice and it had been bitter to live in it, knowing himself their superior. This is one thing, as I have told you about racism. Okay, he despised the ignorant and dirty old woman who had at last consented to house him in her miserable home. Okay, so he did not like to live in the house of this American lady because he found that the house was very miserable. Okay, then lastly what happened, he wanted at the end, during the last year of his day, what happened? He had once tried to be grateful to her because she had, in the last year, nursed him through, because Sadao was going through an influenza. But it was difficult, for she was no less repulsive to him in her kindness. So, though the lady was very much kind to Sadao, yet because she was an American, Sadao had this feeling of repulsion towards this woman. You know, when Tom, that is the American soldier, he wanted to thank Sadao. Sadao did not accept his thank. Okay, he made a distance from this American boy, and how the American, okay, he made a grimace in his face. He was so hurt. Okay, he moved away his face to the wall and did not even wanted to talk to Sadao or talk to Hana, because this American was also feeling very repulsive against Hana or Sadao, right? Okay, so Sadao hated her. Finally, what happened? Sadao remembered the weak face of the American prisoner. It was white in color and was terrible. So, all in all, we find that Sadao hated this American. The Americans also did not like Sadao, okay? But then, at the end, the last line is what exactly make us think about the story. Strange, he thought, I wonder why I could not kill him. So, if there is so much of hatred, okay, in Sadao's heart against the American, then why was Sadao so kind to this American? Okay, why did he operate? Okay, if I understand that Sadao was a doctor and he remembered his vow, so he operated upon the American, that is well and fine. But then why did he not hand him over directly to the army? Why did he made him go through a boat and allowed him to return back to his country? That is what here the Sadao is saying. I wonder why I could not kill him. Okay, so he felt it very strange that why he could not kill his enemy. Right? Okay, so students, I have completed with the explanation of the chapter. Okay, enemy, it is a long chapter, but enemy is a very important chapter for your board exam. Either 2 marks question or long answer type question will come from this chapter. This has been observed every year in the board exams. Okay, so please go through the chapter line wise. Okay, and as I have marked each and every line, that which lines are important, please go through all those lines, right? And still, if there is any doubt, okay, you can ask me, clarify it from me in the classroom. And in my next video, okay, I will be discussing about the question answers, some of the important question answers and some of the difficult words that is there in the chapter. Okay, so students, thank you very much. I hope you all have understood the chapter. Study well. Okay, thank you. Goodbye then.